This is Awareness Explorers.
Welcome back, fellow explorers, to Awareness Explorers. I'm Jonathan. Hopefully you know me by now, but if you don't, I'm Jonathan Robinson. I'm with my co-host,
Brian Tom O'Connor.
And welcome to another exploration of higher consciousness, various methods, various ideas that can help people live a more peaceful and wonderful life. And today we're going to be talking about time and our concepts of time and how time relates to awakening. And hopefully that you set aside a bunch of time to listen to us, because I think we have some good things to say. So Brian, I like to ask, before I start blabbing a bunch, when we thought about doing an episode about time, what popped into your mind?
Well, the original idea to do this was sort of a follow-up on our last Brian and Jonathan episode, which is called The Future of Consciousness. And it occurred to me that the idea of the future, that there is a future, that I'm going to be enlightened or awakened or something, some state will change in the future, is actually one of the major obstacles to self-realization. And so I thought maybe we should do an episode called The Non-Future of Consciousness, but we decided to broaden it to time. And it is a major obstacle, but it really is a paradox, because even though thinking about the future is an obstacle, you need to think about the future to get started. In other words, why would we meditate if we didn't have some idea that we might be happier or more peaceful or even enlightened or awakened sometime in the future? So it's very tricky. I think I have a metaphor that answers this question, but we'll get into that as we proceed.
Mm-hmm. You know, Eckhart Tolle and Jan Fraser all talk about the power of now and how our imaginary concept of time interferes with our awakening. And unfortunately, that's supported so much by our society, where society, especially in America, is very much focused on the future, very little in the past. And religions are often very focused on the future, you know, like be good so you can get to heaven after you die, or do this practice so that in 5, 10, 20 years you'll be enlightened. We're living in a sea of future concepts. And the one thing you can say about consciousness is that it's all really only takes place now. In fact, everything takes place now. So why are we even talking about the future?
Exactly. There is no such thing as the future. The future can never be experienced. We can think about the future, but those thoughts about the future happen now.
Yeah, I like to tell people I work with, by the way, I just want you to know that right now is the most important moment of your life. Try and take that in. Right now is the most important moment of your life, because it's the one you're in. And anytime you say that phrase, it will be true, because that's the moment you're in. The past is really just a memory in our brain cells. The future is completely unknown. Might be that the world, the sun explodes in 3 seconds and there wasn't any future. I remember once I was in a Zen monastery in Thailand, and we were spending 12 hours a day meditating, and once every 3 days you get to talk to the teacher. And I said, you know, I keep on thinking about the future, you know, what I'll do when I'm back home and what I'll do for my career and things like that. And he said, what makes you think that you're going to have a future? You might be dead by the end of the day or by the end of the month. So all your thoughts are wasted. And instead of putting your energy into something that's imaginary that may not happen, you should put all your focus on right now's sensations and be completely here. Well, as what happens, I left the monastery like 3 or 4 days later when the retreat was done. And within a month, I was in a car accident in which I actually did die for about 3 minutes and had a near-death experience. as it really hit me like, yeah, I guess our future really is not guaranteed. And we get all this information about planning for the future and our retirement and things like that. And we don't get the opposite where people come up to you and say, just be here now. Stop thinking about that. Just be here now. That's not part of our society.
No, it's not. And what fascinates me about meditation techniques, spiritual techniques of all kinds, is that baked into it is the idea of the future. It's inescapable. It's unavoidable that to even embark on a spiritual practice, there must be some idea about what you will gain from this in the future. And yet, this thought of the future is the primary obstacle to self-realization, awakening, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, or just simply the knowledge of the inherent happiness underlying all existence.
Yeah, it is really a trap, a paradox, whatever you want to call it. And the belief that I could get somewhere I'm not in the future is such a big obstacle that we really have to dissect it a little bit, because meditation really is all about being here now
Right.
and deepening into now. And in order to do that, you almost have to like take the opposite imagination and say that time doesn't exist. And in fact, a lot of physicists will say that time doesn't really exist. It's more of like a human concept. I don't know if that's true. I can't understand what these guys say anyways, but they're questioning the whole concept of time. And we need to question our thoughts about how we approach things. Like, I was doing the dishes this morning, and the way I do the dishes is the way I do a lot of things, which is this is an inconvenient thing to do. And as soon as I'm done, I will get to do the thing that I really need to do or really want to do. And so I went from the dishes, which were inconvenient. I wasn't really there because I was thinking about what I had to do next. And then I went into email. And during the email, I was thinking, this isn't really the thing I want to be doing. This is just something that's an inconvenience to me getting to what is really important. But that line of thought or that belief, that paradigm, I saw kept on being in every moment. It's even a little bit in this moment, like I want to get to the end of this little sermon I'm doing so I can hear what you have to say. So this getting the sentence out is a little bit inconvenient to getting to the next thing, which is hearing your response to it. And it gets very subtle. And I think of it like almost like, 20% of our attention is kind of on the now, just making sure we don't break the dish. But so much of our thoughts are not on now, and we just accept that as normal.
That's right. And even in other activities, other than something inconvenient like email or doing the dishes, even in something like meditation, we look upon it as okay, there's something about the way I'm feeling now which is not peaceful. And therefore, I'm going to sit down and meditate so that in the future I can be more peaceful. And even the very finest methods has that baked in. For example, you used the word deepening. And last week we talked to Boris and Colette about the deepening protocol. And you can misunderstand that idea of deepening as meaning I'm not deep enough now. I need to get deeper in the future. And the way around it is that that's a misunderstanding of the process, because in that particular process, we use that for an example, where you start with is where you are now,
Yeah.
and you allow. And this is what it's all about. Even like my favorite description of meditation is by Adyashanti, and he breaks it down into two important aspects. The first is allow everything to be as it is right now. The second is inquiry into what is all your experience appearing to or in. But the very first one is indispensable.
Yeah, and if you watch your mind and you're honest with yourself, there's always a little bit of us that's kind of not fully committed to now or is resisting now.
Right.
And it's as if our mind has a mantra, and the mantra is if only these dishes were done, then I could get to now. If only I had more money, then I could really be here and enjoy life. If only my relationship were all just the way I want it to be, then I wouldn't have to be resisting something. I could really be here. And that if only consciousness, which is basically saying what's going on is not, I can't fully commit to this because it's a little screwed up. And I need it to be a little bit different to really relax so I can find peace. And that's our main way of peace, is controlling the people and situations in our life to be exactly the way we want, so we can then be, okay, now I can allow it. Now it's all good. Now I can relax. And something Adyashanti said when I was at a retreat with him, he said, if you could just relax your resistance to now, which is always there in small or big form, you would be enlightened. It's one step to enlightenment. You heard it here, folks. In fact, just appreciate our simplicity of that. And if I say this more times, there'll be more resistance. So you won't really be listening because there'll be even more resistance to my snarky way of putting this. But really, if you want to break down enlightenment to its most basic function, it's no resistance to now.
Yes, beautifully put. And I also loved your expression, if only. I think about it as the conditions we place on experience in order for us to be happy. And that's what we do throughout life because that's what we think will work. And it doesn't. The opposite is true. When we have absolutely no conditions on experience, in other words, our experience, ourselves, other people, and the world don't have to be any particular way whatsoever. Happiness simply shows up and reveals itself, says, hey, you've been covering me up all this time with your conditions, with your if onlys, with your resistance.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's kind of like a drug, the controlling part, because when we do actually get what we want for a moment, either the more money or an orgasm or the food just tasting right, and we let go of our resistance for a moment, we do experience peace and presence. And that little hit tells us, oh, it worked when I just got the perfect food or I just got the perfect something. Then I did experience this great moment. But then you're on a hamster wheel of trying to get that externally all the time, which I don't know. I've tried to control all the people and situations in my life. And for some reason, they don't all agree to that. Uh, I like the line of Bruce Springsteen's song, poor man wants to be rich, rich man wants to be king, and the king ain't satisfied till he rules everything. And you can't rule everything. So that then leads us back to the spiritual search of how do you let go of resistance? How do you let go of the concept that something might be better in the future? Because you really have to let go of that concept. And to do that, you have to let go of the concept of time.
That's right. You have to let go of the concept of time, but you also have to let go of the idea that what is happening now, I don't want, I don't like. And that usually involves pain of some kind,
Yeah.
anxiety, sadness, and and we really need to understand the distinction between pain and suffering. Pain is going to happen. It's part of life. It happens. Suffering is the idea that it shouldn't.
Uh-huh.
And that's the resistance. And that's what can go. It's not easy, but it can go and say, okay, so what? So this is happening. Why is this bad? Or what if it wasn't bad? Or what, or can I just for 2 seconds allow it to be as it is?
It's funny you say for 2 seconds. Can I give methods like that to some of the clients I work with? And I give it to myself. Can I be with this for 10 seconds?
Yeah.
You know, and in a way that's tricking the mind via a time concept to actually just be here.
Yes, exactly. It's and tricks are nice. I think they work. You
Yeah.
use them if they work for you. But one other thing I wanted to add to what you said before when you were talking about getting what you want and being happy for a while, the mistake is we think that we become happy because we get what we want. Like classic example, we want a new car. We get the car, we're happy. A few weeks or months later, we're unhappy again. And we think that we were happy because we got the new car, but that's not the case. We were happy because temporarily we weren't wanting the new car anymore. We weren't wanting something.
Therefore, you weren't resisting the moment.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Our ability nowadays to allow any amount of discomfort, whether physical, mental, or emotional, is approaching zero. You know, that we have the smartphones and that's a constant distraction from even the slightest stuff. And I'm guilty of this as well as, as much as anyone. But the comedian Louis C.K, if you put Louis, then C period, K period, and then hates cell phones and Conan into YouTube, you see him talk for about 5 minutes about how we can't allow any sadness or any discomfort. So we eat, and it's a brilliant 5 minute skit. I recommend people watch it. And he's saying if you can allow it, even going into what you might label as sadness actually gets to a place of presence and feels good. But we aren't able to withstand those few seconds of just sitting with something that's not completely comfortable.
That's right.
And I think a great spiritual practice is to like, can I sit with this without distracting myself for 10 seconds?
Right.
And just going deeper into whatever the sensations are, that underneath the discomfort is the peace and the clarity that we're really looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you want to find that on YouTube, just put in Louis, then C period, K period, hates cell phones, and Conan. It's a clip from his appearance on Conan O'Brien.
Great. Thanks. The thing that fascinates me is that we understand that thinking about the future is an obstacle to awakening. And yet, if we don't think about the future, can we just do nothing? Do we not meditate? Do we just sit on the sofa watching TV and drinking beer? And that doesn't seem to be the case either. And so, a kind of a metaphor for this occurred to me. I think that the idea that there is a more peaceful future through a spiritual practice like meditation is necessary and it's okay. We shouldn't kick ourselves for it because it gets us to the cushion, so to speak, or in my case, the chair or the floor or the bed. It gets us to start the practice. But then what we need to do is be extremely vigilant about asking ourselves, once we start the practice, am I doing this to change my experience? Or can I, while practicing, allow my experience to be exactly as it is without all my strategies to change it and without all my thoughts about how things will be different in the future? So I think in short, we allow that future thinking to get us going. But once we're going, we're vigilant in saying, can I allow my current experience to be exactly as it is?
And it's hard to get that balance. We could use the two-wing analogy again, that you need the future element there to get you to do stuff. And then you need to let go of that future element when trying to meditate or trying to just be here now. When we talked about the sinking in process with Rostel, Colette, and Boris, one of the things that they mentioned is you're trying to sink into now, But at the same time, the idea of sinking into now is to notice anything that changes. And the way to not get a little bit ahead of yourself is to balance it out with a certain amount of gratitude and appreciation for exactly whatever is showing up. And it's a very fine balance because you are kind of trying to get somewhere else, but you are trying to get somewhere else that's deeper into now, which the boat that you ride on is gratitude for exactly how it is. And that's a lot to take in all at once. It's more of an experience than something you can put in an instruction booklet. And it's a very fine razor's edge. So you're always falling off, and you really have to keep on going back to just being with what is, sinking into what is, grateful for exactly what's happening, and with maybe a little bit of desire that it keep on moving somehow, that you not get stuck somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, and I think that's interesting. And my take on it is the question: why is the future veiling our true nature of peace and happiness? And I think the answer is because that underlying true nature, in other words, happiness itself, is already here. It's not something that could be found in the future, but it is already here. In other words, it is pure, choiceless awareness. And my favorite metaphor for this is the clear mirror that doesn't decide what to reflect. It just simply reflects whatever appears before it. And awareness is like that. Right now, we are aware. And this awareness that we are is already accepting anything that appears, the pain, the suffering, whatever. It just allows. And it's already here and it's here now. It's not something we need to get. That's not something that's out there in the future that we get. We just simply pull apart the curtain of
Mhm.
future thinking in order for it to reveal itself.
Mhm. I had dinner with a new friend who's a meditation teacher, Craig Hamilton. Hopefully, we'll be interviewing him soon. And I took his course, which was great. And he had little phrases that helped point you in the right direction. And when I meditate, I sometimes use those phrases. Like one of the phrases is, have no preferences. If you have no preferences, you're not resisting something and you're just here. Or there is no future. Or that can be an inquiry. What if there's no future? And I think you can personalize those phrases to what helps you to let go of the torrent of rushing thoughts, beliefs, ideas, societal stuff that comes at us, that the future is the most important thing. We have like 10,000 pounds on the scale of the future is important, and about, a feather on the importance of being completely here. I mean, people know the book Be Here Now, but they haven't, or The Power of Now, but it hasn't seeped into our daily lives in the way that it does in some cultures. Or other cultures, when I was in Fiji, they seem to really appreciate now. And they'd say, later, or we don't need to worry about that now. And it was so much more relaxing with that cultural paradigm.
Yeah, and I like those tips and those phrases. They're good, especially when they start with what if questions, because
Mhm.
then they don't trigger the analytical brain who wants to decide for us whether something is true or not. Forget about that. Just what if it were true? Just what if the future does not exist? What if I had no preferences? Not, but you have, I have no preferences. And then the mind says, but you do have preferences. And you get into this endless thought loop. But just for now, what if? I think that's great. And the other, I think, most helpful tip is when we're told not to think of something, it's very difficult. Don't think about the future now. You know, that's like don't think about a pink elephant, right? It's very difficult. So instead of not thinking about something, it's like instead of getting rid of a habit, replace it with a new habit. It's a similar concept. Instead of not thinking about something, turn your attention to something else. And the best thing, or there's two things, and I'll talk about them both in the guided meditation, but the number one thing, the best thing simply is the sensations that you feel in your body right now, because body sensations can only be experienced now. And you don't need future thinking or even words at all to experience them. And the second one is sound, which for very similar reasons can only experience sound now.
I was recently at a retreat with Angelo DeLullo, and he had this phrase, "What's here without thought," which has been helpful for me. One of the things I think keeps people or can be helpful in, call it eating at the buffet of now, is to realize that now is often a little chaotic and that you have to embrace the entire chaos of now. You're fully basking in, you could just fully bask in like certain sensations or certain sounds, but if you're not just sitting, meditating, doing that, the now, think of it for our listeners now, probably a lot of them are driving. So you have to be in the now of driving and the now of listening and the now of being aware of what's around you. It now has often a lot of elements to it. And we have to be opening our palette so we're taking that all in and not just thinking about now, which is another trap. You can think, oh, there's a lot going on now, but that's not really being here now. That's thinking about now.
Yeah, that really is the trap, thinking about it. And just as you say, we often think we're in the now because we're using words to describe it and we're analyzing it and stuff like that. And you know, honestly, I don't think that words are your friend in this case.
Well, I think they can be. In Jeffrey Martin's 45 Days Challenge to Awakening, he often will encourage people to use words like have no preferences or describing what awareness is or describing where you feel peace. I think words can be your friends if they're used to describe the exact sensations of now.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Um,
I'll grant you that they can be. And just like we talked about before, there would get you to the cushion. In other
yeah.
words, words can point you in the direction, but ultimately you need to even drop them and drop all concepts.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's
And here,
a
but even that statement that I just made has future built into it. So it's very, very tricky. And that's
it
why
is.
I say we have to be, we have vigilant. We have to notice, is my practice now about something that's going to happen in the future that's not here now? And when we get into the habit and when that becomes second nature, asking that over and over again, you'd be surprised at how easily you can just simply drop into the now.
Uh-huh. Yeah. A phrase or an inquiry I've been using lately, which I find helpful for getting into now, is what am I resisting or denying now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I can look at the resistance, that can unwind. And then I find myself more fully into the now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But part of our discussion is all about, well, even in the word spiritual growth, almost imply a now, like you're trying to get somewhere, you're growing. It
That
should be
implies
called spirit. I'm not sure what you would call it, spiritual beingness.
yes, right. Because yes, right. Spiritual growth implies something that's going to change in the future. That's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
that you need to grow into because you haven't yet. Yeah, beingness. that's such a great word because it's happening now. You are, beingness is it. It's now.
You can't bank beingness. There's no shelf life to beingness.
But you're right about that, where about that there are certain phrases that can help, but you drop them like like
The old thorn taking out a thorn and throwing both away.
yeah, that's a good metaphor. Locke Kelly always used to say, "What's here now without a problem to solve?"
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really great one because practically all, if you really analyze your thoughts, if you really look at, and here I'm encouraging people to be analytical, which I don't usually do. But if you look and notice your thoughts, practically, I would say 99% of them involve a problem to be solved.
Yeah. And that's a problem.
Or not.
Yeah. And of course, we're not thinking the mind does have a place in the world, a very big place in the world. You have to make plane reservations for, Thanksgiving or whatever it is, and set some things up. But when it takes over every moment and keeps people from the moment where they don't have to be planning for the future, then the virus has taken over the body.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are practical uses of thinking about the future that help keep the organism existing. And there are things like you say, like you know, I need to my plane leaves at such and such a time. It takes me such and such a time to get to the airport, and blah blah blah. What time do I leave that? So you do that. But when it involves emotion, or when it involves your spiritual practice, or when it involves psychology, or when it involves the idea of shoulds or shouldn'ts, that's when they're not helpful. That's what it's the practical stuff is fine. Don't hit yourself over the head because you plan what time you need to leave to go somewhere, or you plan even more complex things like you know spreadsheets to do your to create a budget. It's okay, it's practical, but it's the thinking, okay, I'm not going to have enough money. I'm going to feel bad, and this is going to be, and if I don't do this, it will be bad for me, and other people shouldn't be the way they are. That's all this stuff that I'm talking about, the future stuff that it's better to let go of if you
Yeah. So before your meditation, a couple of things. One is I want to thank our Patreon supporters. We give a bunch of free stuff, including summaries now of all our sessions in an email. So if you want to support us, which we really appreciate, go to patreon.com/awareness explorers, and you can donate any amount. So my latest now method to get me into the now is probably the question, can I fully commit to now for the next 10 seconds? It's confronting, and it does kind of work for me. Like, can I fully commit to being absolutely here for the next 10 seconds? And then of course, once I'm there, it's easy to stay there a lot of the times, but it's really about committing because there's all these different things pulling on us, and it kind of takes a commitment.
It does kind of take a commitment. I talking about a vigilance, because you have to notice that even in a sentence like, can I do this for the next 10 seconds? Future is baked into that. And so the vigilance is just simply noticing, oh, wait, I'm thinking about the future. What if I don't? And that's why 10 seconds is great. I like 1 second even better. But
it might be
maybe
more realistic.
Maybe we're just splitting hairs there. Can I right now, this second, commit to being in the present? Or
Yeah.
can I simply notice what's here now?
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to help people with that by guiding them in meditation.
Yeah, I do have a little guided meditation planned. It's a little bit of a summary of what we've talked about, but I think it'll be nice that way. So might as well jump right in.
Good.
Okay. So, first, as always, close your eyes if it's safe to do so. Take a nice, easy, deep breath and relax. Ask yourself, why am I taking a nice, easy, deep breath right now? I'm guessing your answer is to relax. Ask yourself, why do I want to relax? Is it because I'm not relaxed at the moment and I hope to become relaxed in the future after my nice, easy, deep breath? What if it's okay to be exactly as relaxed or as tense as you are right now? Ask yourself, why am I meditating right now? Is it because there is a different state I hope to experience in the future, some minutes into the meditation? Is it because I hope to gain something in the future that I don't have right now, such as enlightenment, awakening, peace of mind, bliss? What if it was okay for my experience to be exactly as it is right now? Just for a few seconds, right now. Don't worry about your experience in the next few minutes, hours, days, months, or years. All of these states that we imagine and hope to experience in the future, such as enlightenment, awakening, peace, and bliss, cannot be experienced in the future. It's literally impossible. They can only be experienced right now. In fact, the very thought that you might experience these sometime in the future leads you away from the possibility of experiencing them at all, let alone now. When you sit down to meditate, be vigilant in asking yourself whether you hope to experience something in the future that you're not experiencing now. If the answer is yes, see if you can allow your present experience to be exactly as it is right now. When we feel we can't allow it to be as it is right now, it's usually because we're experiencing something painful, like anxiety, fear, or sadness. It's natural to want to get rid of them, but they don't go away for the asking. And peace, joy, and bliss can be experienced now, even while anxiety, fear, and sadness are here. But only if there is no thought of a future in which they go away. They are here. That's the way it is. Be like the clear mirror that doesn't decide what to reflect and what to hide, but simply and choicelessly reflects whatever appears before it. Simply and choicelessly allow whatever appears in your awareness right now. The paradox is that it's okay to engage in meditation or any spiritual practice in order to feel better in the future. That's what gets us to the cushion, so to speak. But once you're there on the cushion or chair, it's time to let go of these thoughts of your future experience. Once you cross the river, you don't need to carry the canoe up the mountain. If you find it difficult to not engage in thinking about the future, here are a few tips. 1. Body sensations can only be experienced now. They can't be experienced in the future. So don't force yourself to stop your future thinking. Simply shift your attention to whatever sensations are arising in your body now without any attempt to change them. You can do the same with sound. Sound can only be experienced now. So simply turn your attention from the future thoughts to noticing what sounds are arising in your awareness right now. The third tip is wordlessness. Thoughts about the future can only exist alongside words in your head. Ask yourself, what can I notice about my current experience that doesn't need words in order to be experienced? And the last tip is a sort of mantra you can use. It's 3 words: now, here, this. But here is spelled Here. So that's now, period, here, period, this, period. Whenever your mind strays into thoughts about the future, just gently return to now, here, this. The future is a veil. Lift the veil, and joy, peace, and bliss are uncovered, already here, just waiting to be discovered when the veil of the future is lifted. And to wrap up, I just want you once again to ask yourself, what body sensations are appearing in awareness right now? Allow awareness to do the rest. Now, take another easy, deep breath, and at your own pace, open your eyes.
I love that question. What body sensations are now appearing in awareness? It's kind of like combining two methods that both are bringing you to the now in different directions.
Yeah, which two? What do you mean by two?
Well, body sensations
Yes.
and then in awareness.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You're shifting your yes, that's very well put. That shift in attention to body sensations and in what are they appearing. You're right. It does them both at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. Share it with your friends and family. You know, this is a little bit before our election. There's a couple people in America that are a little tense, like everyone.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can't control these big external things. And in times where there is so much tumultuous stuff going on, it becomes more important than ever that you have a refuge, because you're not going to find the refuge necessarily in politics or money or you know, getting things the way you want. So it becomes really important the more crazy the world gets and the faster pace it gets.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't find happiness out there in the world. It can only be found inside, in your experience, in your true nature as pure awareness. That's where happiness lives.
Well, it also lives in my preferred political candidate, but we'll leave that for another day. Anyways, we thank you for being with us and listening to us blab, and hopefully it's useful to you. Until next time, keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Thank you for listening to Awareness Explorers. To learn more, you can check out our website at awarenessexplorers.com. Please subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast app. We'd love it if you would post a review. And please share our link on Facebook and with family and friends, because knowing yourself as awareness is the greatest gift you can give yourself or someone you love.